From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Supply chain snarl.
There's not enough water in the Mississippi River, and the tows aren't able to get through the river right now.
The impact low water levels on the mighty Mississippi are having right now on farms. Taxing cow emissions, here are the latest plan that's drawing the ire of producers in one country, as USDA offers up a soybean surprise in its latest supply-demand report.
I don't know that we're going to see a sub-billion bushel carryout again.
The bottom line on the numbers and the impact on markets right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. USDA in its latest supply-demand report makes major revisions to yields, especially to soybeans. The new numbers giving a big boost to beans midweek. Let's dive right into them. And we'll start with soybeans. USDA putting yields now at 49.8 bushels to the acre, down 0.7 from September, and that means a cut in production. The numbers lower than the trade anticipated. Corn falling more in line with the new yield, almost 172 bushels to the acre, down about a half bushel from September. As for wheat, USDA taking another bushel off, now at 46.5 bushels to the acre. USDA also cut exports for all three, corn, soybeans, and wheat, leaving ending stocks unchanged for soybeans, but corn ending stocks were a bit higher than the trade expected, even while cutting by 47 million bushels. Wheat stocks also a little higher than anticipated. USDA saying specifically about wheat that due to slow pace of export sales and continued uncompetitive U.S. export prices, this would be the lowest U.S. wheat exports since 1971. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins us with more market reaction. Michelle.
Clinton, the big bullish surprise in the October WASDE was USDA dropping soybean yield below 50 bushels per acre and cutting production 65 million bushels. That resulted in an unchanged ending stocks figure, but that was about 50 million bushels below expectations. Corn yield and production were also lowered, but both were above expectations, as well as the 1.72 billion bushel ending stocks figure. Market analysts say moving forward, the trend is for USDA to keep lowering production for corn and beans, but also cut demand.
So USDA cut the export demand for corn by 125 million bushels, corn for ethanol by 50 million bushels. We saw a change in the soybean export demand by 40 million bushels. So I think that's going to be the theme right now is seeing revisions lower in the crop, but also in the demand side of the balance sheet.
So split doesn't see corn or soybean ending stocks dropping to pipeline supplies like they did during the drought year in 2012.
I don't know that we're going to see a sub-billion bushel carryout again. Just like I don't think we're going to see soybean carryout drop to that previous 120.
The cut numbers were also a bit bearish. USDA trimming production just 20,000 bales, but traders expected a 492,000 bale cut. Ending stocks were increased by 100,000 bales. The wheat ending stocks number was also bearish with only a 34 million bushel cut. Now USDA did put that 133 million bushel production cut into the balance sheets, but it was offset by lower demand, including a 50 million bushel drop in exports. And we'll have full analysis later in the show.
All right, thanks, Michelle. We also received new crop production numbers when it comes to orange production. USDA saying survey work for the Florida citrus forecast was completed before Hurricane Ian tore through the state. But the news already isn't good for many producers. USDA pegging the all-orange forecast at 3.19 million tons, down 8% from last year. Zeroing in on Florida, it's forecast to produce 28 million boxes. That's down a whopping 32% from last season. Early, mid-season, and navel varieties in the state, they're forecast at 11 million boxes, down 40%. Now, the Florida Valencia orange forecast is estimated at 17 million boxes, down 25%. The forecasters say we won't know the impact of the hurricane until the next citrus forecast in early December. Low water levels on the Mississippi River are also factoring into the lower export numbers right now. USDA says U.S. crop exports at Louisiana Gulf Coast terminals are at their lowest levels in 9 years for the first week of the month. It comes at a time when exports usually pick up pace. Forecasters say just over 976,000 tons of corn, soybeans, and wheat were inspected for export at the Mississippi River Gulf Coast. That's down 22% from the previous 5-year average. Now, there is some good news here. As we told you earlier this week, Two closed sections of the river reopened over the weekend. Crews have since been working to clear a backlog of barges. But low water levels due to drought aren't just an issue on the Mississippi. There are also problems on the Ohio River. Take a look at these photos at the Mound City Landing along the Ohio River, not far from where the Ohio and Mississippi rivers converge. Just look at how low those water levels are. The American Commercial Barge Lines reports that the Ohio River is currently closed at River Mile 974. Now, it's due to a barge grounding at the Olmsted Lock and Dam. We'll have more on how this is impacting all producers back at the farm coming up. It's really starting to feel like fall is in the air right now. Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joins us with an update. Matt.
Yeah, that's right, Clinton. Fall really starting to set in. We've got those big swings in temperatures, but we want to take a look at our root zone moisture map where you can see really dry through the middle part of the country. We're talking about anywhere from Texas all the way up to the Canadian border, and then lots of that red showing up. Very dry or extremely dry conditions back out in the west. Still, New Mexico and Arizona doing quite well, but things really starting to dry out from the middle part of the country onto the east coast. We will see some chances of rain over the next couple of days and into next week. But take a look at these temperatures. Behind this cold front, temperatures tomorrow morning in the upper 30s in Chicago, low 40s for the rest of the Great Lakes and into the Ohio Valley. 80s and 90s coming back in the deep south, but feeling much more like fall for the upper Midwest and Great Lakes. And look at those temperatures tomorrow morning. This is what it could feel like with that wind near the freezing mark from Minneapolis to Chicago. Very cold. And check out the winter wheat starting to emerge in Akron, Colorado. Jim Diamond sharing this picture saying, "Good morning, little guys." It looks a little dry there, Jim, but hopefully some moisture is on the way soon. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
Google is adding new sustainability features, and one of them is it's sitting very well with beef producers here in the U.S. The company planning to add things like ingredient level emissions information when you search for recipes, along with comparing the average greenhouse gas impact of things like beef. But Google says it's using information that is sourced from the United Nations, numbers disputed by leading researchers here in the U.S., and that's something the National Cattlemen's Beef Association is denouncing. NCBA's president saying, quote, "Cattle producers have a demonstrated record of continuous improvement, which has led to the United States recording the lowest global greenhouse gas emissions from beef while contributing to food security for the world." NCBA saying Google is using its billions of dollars of resources to target cattle producers and ignore the science. New Zealand's government is proposing a tax on farmers for animals that emit methane as well. The government says the tax would be the first of its kind in the world on methane emissions. It says farmers would be able to recoup the cost by charging more for climate-friendly products. Now, it's estimated the country has about 10 million cattle and 26 million sheep. Farmers, of course, are raising concerns about the high cost of the plan. One group saying the plan would, quote, "rip the guts out of small-town New Zealand." Now, it's not a done deal just yet. The proposal now in consultation, which will end in November. Soybean markets bounce on USDA's latest yield cuts, but what about other commodities? We'll take a look at markets coming up next. And later, as discussed, when it comes to shipping, America's waterways are a major thoroughfare, but low levels due to dry weather has some Arkansas exports on alert. Details in the country. Traders were bullish for beans after the October supply and demand report rolled out. AgDay's Michelle Rook is back with a deeper dive into what it all means.
Grains closed mixed after the WSDA report. Joining us with analysis, Chip Nellinger, Blue Reef Agri Marketing. And let's talk about grains. We closed higher in the soybean trade, and it was really because of this surprise with USDA dropping yield below the 50 bushel per acre mark, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a little bit shocking to me as well. I was almost fearful that they were going to raise yields again. You know, over here in the Eastern Corn Belt, producers getting finished up with beans reporting some massive yields. But obviously the drought in the Western Corn Belt drug that bean yields down under 50. So a little bit of a shock there, kind of offset by a drop in demand and also that increased carry-in because of the bigger quarterly stocks number that we saw a week and a half ago.
So do you think if we continue to see yield drops and then demand cuts that we're going to stay pretty much range bound here for a while?
We could very well. I mean, the market's going to be wondering if on the next report they go down even further in yields. But we've seen this game before by the USDA. Not that it's a game necessarily, but as they decrease, yields and tighten things up, they're going to offset that with likely demand drops as well to kind of keep things where they're at. So we could very well be range bound in here. It's been very, very dry in Argentina. It's too early for the market to care just yet. Yeah. But as you get in November, December, weather is going to be the issue in the southern hemisphere.
Absolutely. What about the corn market? Let's talk about that. Corn prices may be a little bearishly reacting initially to the production cuts, maybe not as much as expected, or yield cut as much as expected, but ending stocks down to 1.17 billion bushels. Where should we be price-wise to work that in, Chip?
Yeah, I mean, still very, very tight. I think the disappointment of the corn market was the big drop in demand, and it probably was warranted given the slowdown in exports that we've seen. So, again, like the bean market, are we going to see further cuts in yield? Still very tight carryout. To answer your question, probably range bound. Maybe 660 on the downside, maybe 7.25 on the upside. Maybe that's the range we need to be in for a few months here until we know more about southern hemisphere production.
All right, appreciate your analysis. That's Chip Nellinger, Blue Reef Agri Marketing, and you can see our full analysis at agweb.com. More AgDay is coming up.
Farming has changed. Markets are riskier than ever. For customized, focused commodity marketing, contact Chip Nellinger or Adam Dreyer at 309-550-7213.
We've seen lots of dust devils here, but this one is pretty big, and ag consultant Matt Conister caught this one on camera at a Jonesboro, Arkansas farm earlier this week. That vortex appears to be hundreds of feet tall just based on the ATV there, and it shows you how dry it can be out there. Of course, we've seen some of that dryness especially building its way into the middle of the country. What do we think as far as the jet stream goes if we're going to get more moisture in?
Yeah, and it really is kind of a tale of two seasons. It's warmer down the south, much cooler in the north. Normally that means we've got some sort of system, but at least over the next week, right in the middle part of the country, it's going to continue to dry things out. The east, though, more of a chance for some rain. And you can really see that battle of the seasons, much cooler air up into parts of the Great Lakes and the upper Midwest. Meanwhile, lots of warmth with a big ridge staying strong in the west. That's going to continue through the end of the week. And notice this, cooler air starts to retract just a little bit, but staying very fall-like in parts of the Great Lakes and the upper Midwest, even down into the Ohio Valley and interior New England, but staying very warm down in the south, all along the Gulf Coast and parts of Florida, and all the way up towards Portland there in the West Coast. That ridge is going to stay strong even into the first part of next week. We'll get another reinforcing shot of some chilly air, which could create maybe the first snowflakes of the season Monday into Tuesday across parts of the Great Lakes. Or really, the farther north you go, the better chance maybe of seeing a couple of those flakes for the first time this year. That cooler air eventually moves off farther to the north and east. The warmth comes back to the middle of the country a little bit for the middle of next week, but still very, very fall-like heading into much of next week. Here's a look at this afternoon. Very fall-like temperatures across the north there. You can still see it's warm, though, across the Gulf Coast and the Southwest. 97 still showing up there in Phoenix. Tomorrow morning, you really see where that cold front has advanced through. Temperatures in the 40s and low 50s down in Atlanta, but 30s there in Chicago up to Sault Ste. Marie. And we're going to see those wind chills even lower than that, but still getting a little bit warmer heading into tomorrow afternoon. And again, that cold front bringing some showers and storms off the East Coast heading through Thursday evening, being replaced by high pressure. That's going to be in really the rest of this week, dealing with clearer skies. We're going to be looking at more chances, though, for some scattered showers downwind of lakes there in the Great Lakes, and then another reinforcing shot of some chilly air here heading over the weekend. But behind this front, still some fire danger. We've got elevated fire danger through the middle part of the country. That's due to dry conditions and those stronger winds, and we'll continue to track that right here on Ag Day. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Bradford, Pennsylvania, periods of rain and breezy, a high of 58 degrees. Heading to Hibbing, Minnesota, cold with evening rain and snow showers, a high of 36 degrees. And Globe, Arizona, sunny and warm, a high near 85.
The staggering impact of an April blizzard on North Dakota cattle. We have new numbers to share next. And later, drought is drying up major waterways throughout the Midwest. We check on levels in Arkansas in the country. We're getting in new numbers about just how many cattle died during the historic April blizzard in North Dakota. The North Dakota Stockmen's Association says about 14% of the state's total cattle herd died in the storm. It says 50 ranchers in 24 counties will get part of $250,000 in aid to help offset expenses from the organization. Now it's thanks to donations it received from 4 states. The National Weather Service says the historic blizzard dumped up to 3 feet of snow in some parts of the state with drifts over 8 feet. It's good to keep up on the competition, especially when it comes to plant-based meats. And now a company says it's created a plant-based product that it says is like a filet mignon. Good Food Institute claims its Juicy Marbles filet mimics the marbling effect of protein and fat. It says it contains soy protein concentrate, sunflower oil, beetroot powder, and yeast extract. A 4-pack of 4-ounce fillets cost $30. Now, the Washington Post reporting that a key portion of plant-based meat sales have dropped more than 10% since last September. Rivers transport a lot of grain in this country. Up next, a look at how low levels are impacting product movement in Arkansas in the country. Low water levels on the Mississippi River aren't just impacting the movement of ag products, it's impacting farmers directly as well. The Arkansas Farm Bureau visited with farmers of Riceland Foods to see firsthand just how serious the problem is.
This is the worst I've ever seen it. I've been here for 10 years.
Most people have never seen this much of an impact on the harvest.
There's a lot of touch points that everybody uses daily that we're all gonna suffer.
There's not enough water in the Mississippi River, and the tows aren't able to get through the river right now. And so they're not able to get the empty barges to all the export facilities in the state.
The impacts from the low water from the Mississippi River are really starting to take an impact statewide. We've been in the harvest for several weeks in South Arkansas, but as the harvest moves north, it becomes more and more of a limiting factor.
If we can't get some water up north, some rain, farmers won't have anywhere to go, and they don't have many options. So they'll have to leave it in the field, which could lose yield, or they have to find somewhere to go. And potentially leaving them on a barge for long periods of time can deter the quality.
Well, with the harvest about 40% complete, you still have 60% left in the field, and we have an estimated production in Arkansas this year of approximately 160 million bushels. So there are a lot of soybeans out there that are needing to find a home.
We've had tows come through the river at Pendleton, pushing 2 or 3 boats at a time, or 2 or 3 barges at a time, and usually they got 12, 15.
Several weeks ago when harvest started, we had premiums for September delivery because of the export program was very strong. There were a lot of basis bids at 50 cents over the Chicago price. Currently, a lot of the river locations are a dollar under the Chicago price to $1.25 under the Chicago price. So it's had a huge impact on the basis. And then this week, it's starting to also have a negative impact on the Chicago market as well.
So all in all, the state of Arkansas is probably close to 40% harvested. I would say down south it's a little more.
As we progress, it's going to get tougher and tougher, and the harvest is moving into North Arkansas a little bit more. So. Storage everywhere is going to be a huge issue.
And the thing about water here, that river being as close as it is, we get some aquifer refilling that we may not get this year, and that could be a problem. And we already had a dry fall. The last significant rainfall we had was well over a year ago.
Fertilizer coming up the river, going up the river to other states, it's going to be an issue. How is it going to get there if there's no water? we're from the farming perspective, so obviously we're concerned with the grain. But with the Mississippi River shut down, there's a lot of things that aren't going to make it where they got to go. Even like the stuff that gets shipped from overseas coming to the Gulf to go up the Mississippi. You're not going to get that stuff, whether it be food or, just everyday items that people need.
And our thanks to the Arkansas Farm Bureau for sharing that story. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Curtis.